The question I wanted to start with begins with a quote from your book, which I recommend everyone check out, Shift the Work, The Revolutionary Science of Moving from Apathetic to All In, Using Your Head, Heart, and Gut. And it's a simple quote, but I really like the way you worded it. And it is, the single greatest lever to unlocking human potential is a more engaged workforce. Better you, better us, better all. Could you chop up that quote for us a little bit and tell us what you were getting at there?
I mean, I think the last 2+ years of this pandemic has definitely interrupted the pattern, which was, going on for thousands of years, which is we've been designing our entire lives around work and not the other way around. For me, part of this story, but, I grew up in the inner city of Baltimore, and, I was, one of 200 out of 1,000 that made it out of the high school of my class. And, I credit often my dad, who didn't lose his job. I was part of a community that was decimated during the sort of the great flight of manufacturing out of the city. And when people lost their job, there was a lot of sort of death and destruction that came with it. And so, I sort of was just very lucky hopping on these lily pads of safety and security, because my dad was this, and it still is, the most honorable, hardworking, consistent human being I've ever met. And so, when I got to college, I was like, all right, everybody's gonna be happy because I went to Hopkins, and thinking like, these are very wealthy, very smart people. And I just remember doing an internship at Merrill Lynch, not to out them, but it was like, I got there and I just like, I got to the top guy and I was like, so tell me what life is like. What is it like sitting in your seat? You're wealthy beyond belief. You're successful beyond measure. What is it like? And this dude looked fucking burnt. He looked tired. He didn't seem happy. You and I jammed on this before. There's a great book by David Brooks called The Second Mountain, which basically is like the first mountain we all keep climbing is this fame and this fortune mountain, as opposed to the second mountain, which is like this fulfillment and living a whole life. And I, had a lot of death happen in my life, and I just kept having that. My mom died when I was 23, and I don't know, I just left school thinking to myself, why are we doing this the opposite way? When in fact, by the way, anybody listening to this, particularly part of your community, knows that to get higher levels of performance, it's not done the way we do it, which is command and control, or telling people where they have to be and when. If you're looking for like an unlock, then you got to look for not like a workforce, but a work choice. Like, people have to have choice. And so for me, over the last 20 years, I think if you can affect the time, the 8 to 10 hours that we all spend at this thing we call work, when we go home, or in this case, when you leave your home office to go hang out with your buds, your family, your partners, et cetera, like, you're more of yourself, not less of yourself. And I think everybody will intuitively get that. Like, you didn't get chipped away of like the human spirit and the human, experience. And I think that's a big part of like, in the downside of capitalism, the downside of the workplace, the downside of corporate America. It's basically chipping away at what we all know intuitively is good.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.